it's great to always be talking with new investors and people who've done a little bit of deals, just so that you guys can see what's possible to achieve in a short amount of time, really with not much resources to begin with. So right now I have 170 multifamily units, and then I have good sized commercial buildings, a couple commercial buildings. So a total of about 26 million in assets. And I did all of that in about 6.5 years. And so it didn't take that long. And and when I started, I was not in Zambia. I was in the Congo at the time, working as a hospital administrator in Africa. So I started long distance, and then 6.5 years I'm here. So that's basically the overview where I'm at right now. Like Felipe said, I am on Instagram. Please follow me at DIY_landlord. I try to drop some knowledge over there, just trying to blow up and be big. Like
and real quick, David, sorry to cut you off, but you do self-manage all of this, right?
That's right. I self-manage 100% of all of it.
What the, like, dude, you self-manage. Sorry, keep going. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
From Africa, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. Is it my internet that's cutting? Yeah, I'm not sure if my internet was cutting out, but so yeah, I self-manage. The commercial property is really easy. Multifamily properties, I've managed up to 250 units because I was managing for someone else before as well. So you definitely can do it. And I think doing it yourself first is a great way to do it. Of course, as you grow, you'll decide whether you want to self-manage or not, whether you want to hire it out. But having that knowledge in the beginning and being so hands-on has helped me in how I grew my career, basically. I wouldn't have been able to make the connections that I made if I was just doing it all passive. And I wouldn't have been able to have the understanding that I have if I had just started being like, oh, I'm just going to do it all hands off. Like I said, I started 6.5 years ago with just a quadplex. Me and my dad started together. We put 12,500 together. He had 12,500. I had 12,500, and we just bought a quadplex. Nothing fancy. Just started the old-fashioned way. Put your down payment down and get rolling, basically. Now, it took 3 years to get 24 units doing it like that, and then in the last 3.5 years when I went full time, that's when it really started blowing up. You know, when I took the full commitment to be like, okay, I'm going to jump in and do it full time, it went from, 24 units all the way up to 170. It grew pretty quickly. And in the beginning, I didn't do anything fancy to get those 24 units, basically just saving up the money. And I lived really frugally and saved almost all my salary, just living off of about like 25,000 a year. And the rest was just getting reinvested. So I always say, like, people, when you're starting out, yeah, it's possible to do it with no money, but if you don't know how to manage your money first, that's where you need to start. Like, you need to start, you manage your money first. You need to get your credit score like sorted out. You need to do all those steps, because if you make money and you don't know how to manage it, you're just going to lose it again. So that's really the first step for everybody. You got to start with managing that money. Now, you can do everything creative. You don't even need to go get bank loans if you can't in your current situation, but you should aim to do it, because you can buy real estate creatively without any money, but why would you give up the opportunity to use bank loans and go even bigger just because you're like, oh, I can do everything creative, I can do everything under finance? But in reality, if you include becoming bankable, if you fix your credit and everything like that, then you can go even bigger because you can have access to the bank loans. And then, as Felipe said, I have those multifamily properties, but now I've started transitioning, because multifamily are so hard to find right now, at least in the size that I'm looking for and for the price that I'm looking for. I'm not interested in paying overinflated prices like everyone right now is paying, especially in my market. It's just saturated with California buyers. So it's hard to find good multifamily properties. So I recognize there's an opportunity in commercial real estate and commercial retail, to be exact. So basically buying a center that has like a grocery store and then a couple of, other stores right next to it, that little strip center. And I've been going towards those now, and I didn't have any experience necessarily in doing those. It was just an opportunity arose and I started researching. I was like, okay, I'm going to go do that. And you take what you learn, even though you're doing multifamily or if you're doing single family, you can always take the next step if you just are always building on what you know. So it's very simple in a way, and you don't have to know everything because people are learning as they go. Even the people who've been doing it for a while, they're still learning. But it doesn't mean you have to limit yourself. Be like, oh, I'm doing single family now, so I can't look at any other opportunities. You're doing single family, that's fine. You're doing multifamily, you can always step up to the next level.
So like, what does that look like? Like, did you just like come across a really rich cousin that was like, hey, let's buy this Kroger? I mean, how did you like fall into that? Because we hear that story all the time of like the rich dudes that are like, oh yeah, I was able to buy 30,000 apartment complex. Like, oh, badass, you grew up with money, whatever. Average investor, you don't just fall into buying a lot like that. Can you kind of go into detail about that? Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay. So it all started when I wanted to do a BRRRR, basically. I wanted to do the BRRRR strategy, but I didn't want to just get a hard money loan because the rates were high or whatever. So I started talking to people to try to just get some money to do a BRRRR. And it was just like 100,000. That's all I needed. And I started talking to people, and my dad talked to a friend I've known this lady for my whole life, just like family friend. And she didn't have money when we were young, but apparently her like parents had money, and when they died, some came to her anyways. So she was like, okay, yeah, I'll lend you 100,000. And it was like at 8% interest, and it was for a year. And we did the BRRRR with that money. And then when I paid it back, I was like, okay. She was like, okay, what's going to be the next deal? I was like, oh, now I got to think of something to do with this lady's money because she's invested 100,000 over, and it was like 6 months that we held it. But now she wants to do another deal. So I got an opportunity to do a larger multifamily, and it was 10 duplexes. So 20 units on one street, and for 1.1 million. Back then, it was a really good deal. Now, it was a good deal back then. But anyways, we approached her and we're like, okay, well, do you want to do something different where you don't just get an interest payment? Do you want to be an equity partner? And she was like, oh yeah, tell me about the deal. So we ended up structuring it where she got 35% of the equity in the deal, and we kept the rest, and she put almost all the down payment down. So we got a loan from the bank, and then she put the down payment for about 35% equity stake. And that was that. And that was kind of a light bulb moment to me. I was like, okay, so I don't need to worry about saving up all my own money and then find the deal. If I find a good deal, this lady has some money and she'll invest in it. And it kind of just grew from there. I was like, okay, she has some money. Who else has some money? And just talking with certain people, and not people, having like $100,000, $200,000. Yeah, that's a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not that much money. Most people know somebody who has probably $100,000 that they're looking to invest. Whether you know them directly or someone in your circle knows them. And that's where I started just reaching out to people. And then once I did that, it was like, okay, any deal that arises, I'll know how to do it because I'll just go try to find the down payment from other people that are in this circle. And that's where it grew from. I did that multifamily. Then I did another like 11 duplexes with her and another investor. And then the first commercial property came across my path, and I brought her, that same lady, into that deal. And then the same people that were on my other duplex deal, and then one other partner. And so they came into my first commercial property. So my very first commercial property, I didn't even put any of my own money into it. I just structured it where we created an LLC, and they were partners in the LLC, and they got their equity portion and I got my equity portion. So I still haven't won the lottery, and I still don't have millions of dollars just sitting in a bank account waiting to be reinvested. But I'm still able to pull down these deals because I can just access other people's money.
And what is your role in that? So for that equity, right? Whether it is 5% or 10%, what is the role that you play after you guys close?
So I'm keeping way more than 5 or 10%. By the way, I would never do it for that. I'm giving like 75% or at minimum 50%. But what I do is I do everything with the deal. So I found the deal, I put the deal together, I underwrite the deal, and people are trusting me basically because they're just saying, okay, if David says it's a good deal, it's going to perform how David says it's going to perform. And then because I self-manage, I'm very, very confident on how it's going to perform. So if I have to go over there and put extra work in and not charge them for my hours to get this property ready so that we'll hit our numbers, I'm going to do that because I'm always going to hit the numbers that I promised the investors, like, hey, this is how it's going to work. But when you depend on a property manager, that's so much out of your hand, and deals go sideways all the time because they're mismanaged by the property manager. I don't really have that risk because I know that I'm going to manage it how I know I'm going to manage it. So the property management side, though, I get paid for. Like I charge a fee for that property management. What my role in the company per se that owns it is, we still talk about decisions. They're still active in making a decision. It's like a joint venture. But the real value I brought was on the front end, where I said, I found the property, I negotiated the price, and I basically co-signed and said, hey, this is a good deal. And it's going to perform in this manner. And then they trust me that it's going to perform in this manner. And then I ensure that it overperforms. So they're super happy and they tell other people, and then they want to come into another deal and another deal.
Yeah. How important is that to you, David? I'm going to assume you're going to say super important, but give us an example as to why it's so important to keep your word to your investors about the numbers, just so those investors here who are thinking about using someone else's money, how important is it to keep your word to them or your promise to them about hitting your numbers?
Like, I heard one time someone said, oh, you should invest with other people's money because if you lose it, it's not your own money. And that is the worst advice ever. Like, I could not disagree more. Like, that is just horrible. I treat people's money way better than I treat mine. Like I said, I will go the extra mile to make sure that their money is getting the accurate return. Like if I don't even want to take it until it's time for closing. If I take it and it's sitting there waiting to close, I want to pay interest on it. Like I want to respect someone's money to the utmost because that represents their hard work and time. And if I disrespect that, I'm essentially disrespecting them and all the effort they put in to accumulate that. And I can't really sleep with that. So yeah. And then on the selfish side for me is if I know if I do a good job and I take care of their money, then they're only going to really put more money in, and then I can get bigger and bigger deals. And they're going to tell people how good of a job I did. I mean, I hear about syndications all the time where someone's been in it for 2 years and they haven't received any, payments back out, no cash on cash return, nothing. And it's funny when I hear them talking, they're like, yeah, but it probably will still be a good deal. Yeah, I think it will turn out like when they sell it or something like that. Yeah, it'll probably still work out. I'm like, no, man, if you're not getting any returns for 2 years, to overcome that, I mean, you better be selling it for crazy, crazy high amounts. But it just goes back to those people weren't really respecting, or they either didn't know what they were getting into, or 2, it was mismanaged and they couldn't control the management company, or 3, that person was just not being honest up front and not really respecting those people's money when they put it in the investment.